Hello, faithful, and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussion. Only smart takes, never any clickbait, and it's a victory Monday as I record this on Monday evening. The 49ers coming off of their trouncing of the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to jump into the misery monger fans still having an issue with the victory. My retort to that, Twitter twats back again. Brock Purdy silencing the haters, at least for a week. And even those haters might not be silenced for long. We're going to be talking about how a healthy-ish offense looked, how efficient it was. The defense gets shredded for big-time yards. Run D looked pretty decent. Niners finally win another takeaway battle. Talk about a couple injuries, key ones coming out of the game, and my takeaways from this NFC West. We'll call it a clash. But the Niners beat up on the Cardinals 41-22. Before the game, all I heard from terrible 49er fans, I don't want to say terrible because, I did cover this in last podcast, saying that people out there were, saying, well, the Cardinals defense is pretty good. The Niners have to, watch out. Look what they did. The first game when Mac was quarterback, the Niners had to come back at the end, win it on a walk-off field goal by Pinheiro. Arizona's got a good defense. Don't let that Seattle game from a week ago fool you. And my response to that was, well, statistically, the Cardinals and the Niners are right there. Every single metric, passing yards, rushing yards per game, yards per carry, points per game, EPA for pass attempts, all very similar. And no one's calling the Niners defense a good defense. So you got to choke that back. Sit down, put down the glue that you're sniffing to craft your bullshit narrative that the Cardinals are a good team, and when the Niners struggle, it's going to show that they can't play well against a pretty good defense. What now? And yes, the Cardinals were missing two of their linebackers and a cornerback. It's not like the Cardinals were, it's not like the Niners are healthy. And I'm not even sure if the Niners took advantage of those absences, given how quick strike the offense was for a variety of reasons. But let's get back to the misery mongers, because they're going to say, oh, the Niners beat a team that beat themselves. The Niners didn't do anything special. Arizona threw for a ton of yards, and if they didn't turn it over, and this, that, and the other thing, and the Niners had a kickoff to start the game. Of course, Sky Moore can't get into the end zone, but gets tackled at the 1 or 2 yard line. So the Niners get a big kick return. They get 2 interceptions. They get a fumble recovery. Again, someone going in at the goal line, this time courtesy of Upton Stout. We're going to talk about him more in a minute. But those interceptions and the kick return were things that the Niners caused, right? Malik Mustafa had a diving-ish interception. Diamador Lenore won down the sidelines. And we knew, if we learned anything from a couple of games ago when he got an interception, he was not going out of bounds. He was trying to make another house call. Lucky that he avoided injury, because it did look like he was hobbling coming up once he got tackled, and he celebrated with teammates in the end zone. And then it looked like he was still hobbling on the sideline, but he was not on the injury report, I don't think, per Kyle, after the game. If you want to call that fumble at the goal line like a lucky push type thing, sure. But how often have the Niners been on the receiving end of a bad break, or just not being able to get good breaks really outside of the Ram game and this game? 3 interceptions on the year, 1 coming into the game. And the misery mongers again, oh, the Arizona Cardinals, 17 penalties for $130, most penalties in Cardinals history. Time of possession, the Niners lose the time of possession battle by 9.5 minutes. But the turnovers, if you want to say the turnovers are the difference, you can. If you want to say, oh, it would have been a closer game with the turnovers, if it was only 1 turnover, if the kick return didn't happen, you might mathematically be correct. But here's my retort to that. The Niners getting 3 turnovers, or winning the turnover battle 3-0, and getting a kick return down to the 1, beat the Cardinals 41-22. When San Francisco lost to Jacksonville, where they lost the turnover battle 4-0, or 0-4, I guess, and a better team than the Cardinals are, they gave up a kick return touchdown. They gave up a or was it a punt return touchdown, excuse me, and a kick return at the end of the first half that gifted basically the Jaguars another 3 points. And they only lost that game by 5. And they were in that game the last time that Brock played at midfield trying to drive for the go-ahead touchdown. Purdy was strip sacked, Jacksonville recovered, and the game was over. So the Niners, you're going to complain that the Niners get, not you guys, because I have a smart listener and viewership, but the misery mongers out there, oh, the penalties and the turnovers and the Cardinals beat themselves. They got ass whooped. It was 35-10 going into the fourth quarter. They got ass whooped. The Niners were never out of the Jaguar game, losing the turnover battle 3-0, the fourth turnover being one of the last plays of the game at midfield when Purdy got sacked. But to win a turnover battle, lose the time of possession battle by 9.5 minutes, have a 19-point victory, put up 200 less yards than the Cardinals, and to still win by 19, there's got to be something impressive about that, right? Something. You beat anybody by 3 scores in this league. It's pretty impressive. The Niners were a 2.5-point favorite going into Arizona, less than a field goal. If they were a 20-point favorite and won by 19, then maybe some of these miserable shitbag fans may have a point. But even then, they still would not. Like Twitter Twats, back again, back-to-back podcasts. Again, back by popular demand, singular. So wanted to pay this off again. And this person could be Twitter Twat of the week, the month, the year of his life. Yes, everyone's favorite shitbag wannabe journalist, Grant Cohn. Here's the quote. Quote, if the 49ers had Bryce Huff and Jalen Phillips or Jermaine Johnson, they might be legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Jermaine Johnson, what, 1.5 or 2 sacks on the year? Put him opposite Bryce Huff, who shouldn't be a starter, who at best is your bring him in on third down speed rusher guy. While Grant Cohn's takes are always bad, and that's how he makes money. He's a chump in a chain. He's an absolute misery merchant shitbag. I was actually more surprised by the fact that Robert Beal was active at defensive end for the 49ers and Clelin Ferrell was not. Clelin Ferrell is the superior player to Robert Beal. I don't know what the coaching, I'm not at practice, but I will trust Robert Saleh over him forgetting more defense than I'll ever know. But just what Clelin Ferrell has shown in a couple games is more than Robert Beal has shown in his career with the 49ers. That was more surprising to me than Grant Cohn's horseshit take, because Grant Cohn and his cocksucking clown clique, the Jesse Nailers of the world and others who worship at the throne or at the waist of Grant. And I pose this question. I really do wonder. I'm not sure if Jesse's righty or lefty, but I really wonder which one of his fingers smells most like Grant Cohn's asshole today, or just in general, right? Because these are people that, and you can go on Twitter and see it, that are actively rooting against Brock, that are so butthurt still about Trey Lance. They are actively rooting against Brock. What did Brock do today that Mac couldn't do? Now Brock didn't have the most dynamic game. He didn't throw for 300, 350 yards. He was 19 of 26, 73%, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Pretty goddamn efficient game. And I picked Brock up before the 1:00 game started. I was wondering, should I start him? Should I start Stafford? I kept Stafford in because he's been on a heater. Brock would have gotten me 7 more points. I'm going to win in that league anyway, so it didn't really matter. But I at least have him for next week, Monday night against Carolina, and the rest of the way, I'm not going to start him at Cleveland. I'm not crazy. But Brock had a really strong return. We didn't see the mobility, right? We didn't see any runs. We saw pocket presence. We saw mobility out of the pocket. We did not see him really breaking the pocket for any yards. We saw the ball slightly being pushed downfield more. Sometimes they were bad decisions by Brock. He does need to take the check down when it's there, or, hit the hole scrambling a little bit, more quickly. And he was never that type of player. He's not Michael Vick in his early years, Steve Young in his early years, Justin Fields any year, pick one. He is absolutely terrible. He doesn't bail the pocket. He's looking to throw, but he should learn to throw it away a little bit more. He did put the ball in harm's way a couple times. I'm not one of these for these almost interceptions. Oh, he almost had 2 interceptions. Those are like pressures to me. It's a bullshit. It's actually not even a stat. An almost interception is not a stat. A pressure is, and I think that's a bullshit stat. But you see, even after 6 games off, the commands of the offense that Brock had. The Seahawks put it on the Niners. They were up on the Cardinals. They were up 35-0 in the first half. The Niners were up 35-10 going to the third. Not comparing the teams. And, let's just quickly, big game Sam Darnold. Big game Sam, 4 picks at the Rams. Go back to last season against the Lions for the division, shit all over himself. Playoff game at the Rams, shit all over himself. Game for the top of the NFC West, shit all over everybody. It was explosive diarrhea coming out of every orifice of Sam Darnold's, but there's still those in the clown clique, the Grant Cohn clown clique, that think he's a better quarterback than Brock. And I hate to dwell on it so much. It's just so ignorant. And it's not done out of satire or sarcasm. These morons actually believe it. Can you imagine if Brock had 1 touchdown and 2 picks? And they say they still won the game, but by less. These people would be clamoring to crucify him via internet, crucify Brock via internet. And I would have been the one like, it wasn't a great game, but first came back. You would expect some rust. His passer rating was over 130. Where was the rust? He looked really good, and especially in comparison. I don't even want to say comparison to Mac playing the Cardinals the first time, because they were without Kittle, and Jennings, I think, got banged up, and different offense, right? Different offense personnel wise. I don't think they had Demarcus Robinson yet. But if you want to look at this way, people are going to complain, fans going to complain about, the kick return got him an easy touchdown. Take that away. They still scored 41. I'm sorry, 34. Can't do math. Still scored 34. I have been saying for weeks that when Brock comes back, the offense might not look significantly better or significantly more explosive than when Mac was playing, because he was playing at a high level for the vast majority of the games, for 4 or 5 out of the 7 games. Again, Texans game, no. Falcons game, no. But this is what a healthy-ish offense, it's essentially right now, it's everybody but Ayuk, right? Everybody but Ayuk. What it's going to look like with Brock. This may be his low point yardage-wise for the year. 200 yards. Well, maybe Cleveland if there's bad weather and Jim Schwartz gets in Kyle's head. Kittle goes 6 for 67 and 2 touchdowns. Jennings 4 for 54. McCaffrey 5 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown. And that's with next to no production from Demarcus Robinson, 1 for 13, and Ricky Pearsall, 1 for no yards. And we thought Pearsall was going to be on a snap count, right? Easing him back. Not so much. He played about 3/4 of the snaps. Leave it to Kyle in terms of breaking down the tape to see how he was running routes, how open he was, how he was looking in the blocking game. I'm just not one that I don't do the all 22. I don't break down film. Got 2 kids, coach multiple sports, demanding job. I kind of have a life. So the time I spend putting in for researching the podcast plural each week is enough for me. But God bless the Johnny Dells of the world. They do awesome work. They do God's work. I'm not being sarcastic. That's just not something I do and discuss on the podcast. The run offense, okay, a little bit better than the first time around against Arizona. Under 4 yards a carry, 25 for 95 and 2 touchdowns. McCaffrey, 13 for 81 and 2 touchdowns. So he had a 20-yard run, a little over 6 yards per carry on the day. Brian Robinson, 8 for 24. So McCaffrey only 18 touches in a blowout win, but he was still in, and so was Brock and others with like 5 minutes to go in the game. I'm thinking, yeah, I know this isn't college where you have like 90 kids or close to 100 kids dressed and you can just sub everybody out. But Brock, you may want to take out. McCaffrey, you may want to take out. Kittle, Trent Williams. Like there's, and then defensively, I mean, obviously Bethune got hurt, and we're going to talk about that. I thought there was ways that they could maybe play it a little bit safer, but that's just not what Kyle does. Special teams, a good showing, at least on the return unit. Brian Robinson had a good return. Obviously, Sky Moore to start the game. But of course, it can't be all good. Eddie Pinheiro misses an extra point, gets one blocked, and gets hurt. We're going to be talking about that in a minute also. So now let's go to the bad. And the bad is the defense. 488 yards. The pass defense obviously got shredded. 200 more total yards than San Francisco. You can have the yards, you can have the time of possession, you can have the slightly better third down conversion rate. Arizona Niners won by 19. The Cardinals are still a poverty franchise. It doesn't really matter. But Jacoby Brissett showed why I might be picking him up this week with Kyler Murray still hurt, and I just have Justin Herbert as my quarterback, and I know they got blown out by Jacksonville. Who saw that coming? And I'm hoping that Herbert's not injured, but I'm going to need someone week 12 when Herbert is out. Anyway, Jacoby Brissett, 47 of 57. Most completions in NFL history. Congrats, Jacoby Brissett, and congrats, Niners defense. At least you are in the history books. 452 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, not sacked at all. Had enough time there to read a novel, or at least a comic book graphic novel. At receiver, Michael Wilson led the way, 15 for 185. Trey McBride at tight end, 10 for 115 and a touchdown. Listen, now some of the yardage that Brissett had, and he was thrown for yardage, but only, had just 2 interceptions until he got into the late third and fourth quarter. Like I mentioned, the lead was so big that Saleh was playing even softer than usual. This was Nick Sorensen's soft serve vanilla latter part of the third quarter and into the fourth. And you don't have to worry about the pass rush being vanilla, because even when you're trying to spice up the pass rush as well as possible, it's vanilla as shit. So some of those yards, those touchdowns could be a bit deceiving. Still, the pass defense can't be such a problem. That has to be tightened up. You know how everyone says, like, you want to tie together the pass rush and coverage on the back end? It's never going to be tied together, because the pass rush, if that's characterized by a rope, it's frayed and on fire and disintegrating. There is nothing to tie it together to the back end. The coverage is going to have to play stickier and tighter, and however Saleh dials that up for games where they don't get up big quick like they did, and then extended the lead via turnovers and just being super efficient on offense. Because you gave Jacoby Brissett that much time, you see what happens. You give Matt Stafford that much time a week ago, you saw what happens. Bryce Young has been playing pretty well for the Panthers. They don't necessarily have, I know McMillan and Xavier Legette, and obviously Rico Dowdle at running back, and Chuba Hubbard behind him. They have playmakers, but they're not the Rams. They're not the Seahawks. And they should be able to tie things secondary wise amongst themselves maybe a little bit better. Demo, 4 for 63 that he let up. Upton Stout, 7 for 80. I am not an Upton Stout hater by any means, but I think right now Chase Lucas is the better nickel right now. But if Upton Stout is the only player on the team or the defense where you can say he's probably getting playing time to accelerate his growth. I don't think, if it's close between Upton Stout and Chase Lucas in preseason, you give the nod to Upton Stout because you want him to grow, right? You want this to be a learning year, and he's not really killing the Niners team at all. He's just getting picked on. So was Marquise Siegel, which is why he came out of the lineup safety-wise. But I think Upton Stout's the only one that you can point at and say, okay, he's getting snaps because he's a rookie. Even though I do believe in my heart of hearts. Remember, Upton Stout missed the majority of training camp, didn't play in any preseason game. Chase Lucas was a stud. And right when Upton Stout was healthy, they put him in again. And Lucas is the better blitzer. He's just as fearless as Upton Stout, a little bit taller, may not have the same wingspan, like arm length wise, that Upton Stout does. But they are lucky that this is a 7-4 team with, I can't think of a word other than like a deficiency, a weak link at nickelback. And don't misunderstand me. I don't think Chase Lucas would strengthen it up. He's not twice as good as Upton Stout or anything like that, but you can tell, Stout is getting picked on. He's new to the league. Lucas has more reps under him, not a ton more because he's a journeyman. If they were ever to make that switch, I would not complain. But the secondary, Renardo Green, not terrible. The safeties weren't awful. Jason Pinnock was the safety in big nickel. Again, it was Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa who had an interception. We'll see. Again, but the 488 yards, it's deceiving because of how big of a lead the Niners got, and we are not used to that this year. Right? It's like the Giants game last couple weeks ago. Jackson Dart throws 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, but the Niners were up, they're up 17. Dart throws a touchdown. They get up 17 again. Dart throws a touchdown. A lot of those yards or scores are circumstantial and situational. The Niners didn't look nearly as bad in the first half as it did in for the last, let's say, 20 minutes of the game. And that was because of the lead. Run D, though, was very good. 14 for 36 and a touchdown. Yes, Arizona got away from the run because the Niners took control of the game. But even those 14 rushes, you're talking about 2.5 yards per carry. So 36 rushing yards in total is really going to help the Niners average per game come down probably around 100 now, for whatever that's worth. Again, they got into it's not even a shootout. The Niners were the ones shooting. And Arizona, you have to put it in the air. And with the amount of success that Brissett was having, 47 of 57, Christ, would any of us go back to the run? If we were playing Madden and we were having that much success passing, would we go back to the run? Maybe Tecmo Super Bowl if you had Bo Jackson or something, but not in these situations. Pass rush, anemic as you might expect. 13 total pressures led by Kalia Davis. Grant Cohn, Twitter twat extraordinaire. You should actually have said, if you brought in Jalen Phillips or Jermaine Johnson and put him next to Kalia Davis, who led the team with 4 pressures, then, guys, you might have something ridiculous. And let me just go back because I was talking to a buddy yesterday about this. The whole Mac Jones thing I said last podcast. If you listen, thank you so much. If you're listening for the first time or watching for the first time today, thank you so much. Jalen Phillips is having a pretty decent impact on the Eagles. Think about that Eagles defense as a whole and that defensive line and compare it to San Francisco's. Night and day. You're adding a pretty good player to a really good defense. Whereas you would add Jalen Phillips, who's a pretty good player, to a average defense is probably the best thing we can say, and a below average defensive line. Where do we think he would actually make an impactful difference? A couple more pressures? We don't think that they would slide the protection to Jalen Phillips. They probably wouldn't even slide protection to Jermaine Johnson. He's not that good. But the reason why I brought that up again is if Jalen Phillips fetched a 3rd round pick from the Eagles. Now I'm tying it back to Mac Jones here. If Mac Jones gets traded in the offseason, I really don't think a 1st round pick is that unreasonable. Say it's the Jets' 2nd 1st round pick, bottom half of the 1st round, bottom 10 picks of the 1st round. The Steelers' 1st round pick, because Aaron Rodgers is going to be gone, bottom 10 of the 1st round, pick 20 onward. Is that unreasonable for a starting quarterback? Someone that you're coming to me saying, I want your backup to be my starter, because we all know he's been a starter in the league a bunch with Jacksonville and New England a lot, obviously where he got drafted. You're telling me a late 1st round pick is unreasonable if Jalen Phillips goes for a 3rd? Jalen Phillips is not Max Crosby, obviously, right? He's not Danielle Hunter. He's not Will Anderson. Trying to think of other defensive ends that are even like mid-tier. He's not even Bradley Chubb. Bradley Chubb's the better defensive end on that Dolphin team before he was traded. So I didn't mean to get off on a little bit of a tangent. I would keep Mac, just given the injury history, not of Brock, but of this team in general. No Mac this year equals not sniffing the playoffs. And if Brock gets hurt again next year, which doesn't mean he's injury prone, but just it's a violent friggin' sport. And look how unlucky he was with turf toe the first time. And then the second time against Jacksonville, no Mac Jones equals not sniffing the playoffs this year. And I don't know how good Kyle's going to feel about Curtis Rourke essentially getting a redshirt year now to be the backup next year, unless you can get a first. If you can get a first, then I would strongly consider it. But anything else, probably not. Now, injuries, Eddie Pinheiro, hamstring, out a few weeks. We'll see who they're going to bring in. I'm sure it's going to be someone they signed to the practice squad because they're just now running out of spots. We'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute on the 53-man roster. So someone on the practice squad that they can elevate twice, get to the bye week, and hopefully Pinheiro comes back after the bye. And I think that's hosting Tennessee. So he's going to be out a few weeks. And Tatum Bethune, high ankle sprain. They're probably not going to put him on IR. Same sort of thing. He'll miss the next 2 games, bye week, and then hopefully be back 4 weeks after that for Tennessee. Hopefully. But again, Niners injuries, Niners medical staff. When does anything ever go to plan? The Bethune injury is maybe a little bit more interesting that you maybe, I don't say you maybe of the 2 players, you maybe think about putting him on IR because now you only have 4 linebackers on the active roster. The easy fix is elevating Jalen Graham from the practice squad. They can do that for the next 2 games, which would be Carolina and Cleveland. Then you're at the bye. Then you can elevate him again if Bethune's not ready for the Tennessee game when they get back. But Curtis Robinson's going to start in place of Tatum Bethune. It's not Nick Martin, guys. It ain't Nick Martin, no matter who you heard it from or anything. Gifford got evaluated for concussion. Luke Gifford, he came back in. Obviously, Bethune got knocked out. Martin got playing time. Curtis Robinson got knocked out for a little bit. He came back in. So with Jalen Graham being temporarily elevated to the 53, the Niners will have 5 linebackers for the Panther game. Now, takeaways from the game. All eyes were on Brock. A lot of eyes for the wrong reason from a miserable subset of the fan base who is actively rooting against the quarterback, but still wants the team to do well. Figure that out. Strong first game back, but he does need to press less. Not everything has to be a fitting it into a tight window. If it's 3rd down and you obviously want to move the sticks, that's fine. But 1st or 2nd down, you don't need to force anything. Scramble. I think there was a little bit of lack of confidence or self-awareness of not wanting to scramble and do anything to the toe. I'm just making that up. But that was one of the few games where Brock didn't do his, what did George Kittle once call him? A water lizard, little scurrying, running around thing. Didn't happen. I wonder if it was in his head a little bit. Niners overwhelmed a bad team. Can you imagine if the stat line played out the way it was? 3 turnovers, big kick return, Brissett, carving up the secondary for 480. Imagine if they won this game by like 6 points or 9 points or 10 points. Oh my God. They only beat the Cardinals by 6. Come on, bro. The Cardinals just basically gave that game away. 17 penalties and 3 turnovers, and you only beat them by 6. They beat him by 19. They smashed the shit out of that poverty franchise. I don't think you need to spin it to any sort of negative. Well, this and well, that. They took advantage of turnovers. They had positive special teams in terms of at least the return aspect. Brock was efficient, and we'll go back to turnovers. They got timely turnovers. Timely, especially at the goal line, timely turnover. Mentioned earlier about the defensive yardage allowed being inflated. Salah playing softer than usual in the 3rd and 4th quarter. Again, this is not a good defense. This is a middle of the road, lower 3rd defense. Top tier of the lower 3rd defenses in the league. That's probably what they're going to be unless something drastically changes and things start clicking a little bit more for the pass rush. Linebackers, now you're obviously down to your third middle linebacker, and you're going to be playing some youth. Who knows how much play run Nick Martin's going to get. But what you saw for the second half against Arizona is not representative of what this defense is as a whole. They're better than that, just not much better. And lastly, another NFC win, another divisional win. They are 4-1. They are in the playoffs as the 7th seed as of today because they played one more game than the Lions. But guess what? Even if the Lions were 7-4, the Niners would be in the playoffs because they have a better conference record than the Lions. 7-4 with Carolina coming up. Look at the Panthers, man, going to overtime to beat the Falcons. Was it the week before, 2 weeks before? They go to Green Bay and beat the Packers. But they are a 6-5 team, right? You know, you are what your record says you are. Bryce Young and McMillan and Leggett and Dowdle and Hubbard. They have some players. And this game on Monday night, so seven days from now, a week from now, because I'm recording this on Monday night, the 17th, is going to, in a lot of ways, dictate the bottom portion of the wild card teams. 6 and 7. This is a big game. Chicago, about a month from now, or a little more than that, is going to be a big game. The Bears' schedule is ridiculously hard. Ridiculous. And they got obviously very lucky beating Minnesota, but is really hard the rest of the way. You can definitely see maybe the Bears losing 3 or 4. Hopefully that includes the Niners beating them, of games rest of the way and maybe finishing up 10-7, 9-8. But to get the head-to-head on Carolina this Monday night will be huge. To get the head-to-head against the Chicago Bears, second to last week of the season, would be huge. You have Tennessee in there, which is a winnable game. And the Seahawks, the Niners are now 1.5 games back on Seattle. That last game, week 18, Seattle at San Francisco, could be for wild card positioning. If you're wondering who to root for now, root for the Rams. When the Rams go to Seattle, you want the Rams to beat Seattle to knock them down further in the hopes of maybe the Niners leapfrogging them into the 6th spot in terms of wild cards, or possibly the 5. Because like the Lions now have 4 losses. They're 6-4. Green Bay, even though they beat the Giants, they're not looking that great. No one from the NFC East is getting in. No one, I mean, maybe the Panthers, but it's really just going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, the Vikings are completely falling off. And those other teams, like, we'll see how good Lions lost. Obviously Lions lost again, but we'll see how good, Chicago really is with their gauntlet of a schedule coming up. But big NFC win happened. Big NFC West win happened. Another NFC opponent coming up. And it is a quasi playoff game. People say, oh, it feels like a playoff game. I know the Panthers aren't some world beater, but this is one of the teams you're going to be battling with to get that head-to-head on them, to go 8-4 and drop them to 6-6. You're technically up 3 games on them now. That would be huge. We got a lot of time to think about that and talk about it. Might be another shorter than this one, podcast on Wednesday if there's something noteworthy to talk about. Otherwise, we'll go Thursday or Friday, heading into a relaxing weekend of NFL football. Niners not playing on Sunday, but they are playing on Monday, and we will be jacked for that one. So Victory Monday, guys. Hope you're like me, enjoying the fact that the Niners took that game. Arizona gave them nothing, and they trounced them to the tune of 41-22. Whatever you guys are doing between now and when we speak again, stay happy, healthy, and safe. We will talk soon. Take care.